What connects Mossad and Taylor Swift? When you stop suspecting the singer of working for the Pentagon, answer one more question. Can you instantly name a couple of loud operations by the CIA, MI6, and the FBI or NSA? No, Swift is not a Mossad employee, although anything is possible. And yes, it is normal that many of you could not quickly recall special operations of the world's largest intelligence agencies. It is all about extraordinary PR, because of which a new Taylor Swift album, just like a Mossad operation, causes more resonance than the works of other artists and intelligence services. But is this PR strategy a conscious approach to image formation? Or have we, the ordinary people, filled them with an aura of mystery and plastered them with myths? And does this mean that they are the best in their field? You can express your opinion regarding Swift in the comments. And with Mossad, we will sort it out together right now. You will learn how the intelligence of a small and newly created state manages to instill horror in dozens of hostile countries. Why do even Mossad's failed operations improve their reputation? And how the United States missed the leak of the century and facilitated the friendship between Israeli intelligence and the West. Let's figure out how everything is really arranged. Operation with Hezbollah, pagers in Lebanon and Syria, 2024. Surely many of you still have fresh memories of their recent operation and walkie-talkies of members of the Lebanese group Hezbollah. This news amazed the world mainly for two reasons. Firstly, Mossad once again declared itself as the most inventive and ubiquitous intelligence service in the world. Secondly, who else uses pagers in such quantities? The detonation of devices occurred in Lebanon and Syria on September 17th and 18th, 2024. Notifications arrived on thousands of devices simultaneously, shortly followed by detonations. As analysts suggest, the timing and method were calculated to maximize the probability that the device owner would be holding it or looking at it, ensuring a high-precision impact. From journalistic investigations, we learned that initially, the pagers were produced by a branch of a Taiwanese company, but the batch likely went through a complex network of shell companies where the devices were modified. Reports allege that explosive material was integrated directly into the components, making it virtually undetectable by standard X-rays. A front person also helped sell the pagers to Hezbollah, who did not arouse suspicion and explained that the device was larger because it was an improved model, with a protected case and a powerful battery. Do you feel the irony of the situation? The group used such primitive communication devices for security purposes to avoid tracking, but it turned out completely the opposite. As a result of the operation, dozens of operatives were neutralized. Injuries were received, according to various estimates, by thousands of people. Almost all of them were members and activists of the group. Almost. Here we get to the freshest example of the perception of Mossad in society. Among the casualties and wounded were children and bystanders. But in the information field, we see predominantly delight and admiration for the technical complexity of the implementation. Why even victims and mistakes do not spoil Mossad's image? I understand that most of you are more interested to learn about various operations of Israeli intelligence. I will return to them a little later. But in order to figure out why Mossad's reputation does not suffer from the side results of their activities, we must immerse ourselves in the context. I will not retell the history of the creation of the agencies in detail. Many videos have been shot about this, and even more articles written. Within the framework of this video, it is more important for us to trace its motives and positioning. The enmity between Arabs and Jews in the territory of Palestine began long before the official formation of the State of Israel in 1948. The history of their conflict is worthy of a separate episode. Write in the comments if you would like a video on this topic. During this period, the Haganah organization was created, the goal of which was to protect Jewish settlements. Over time, the Shai unit appears in Haganah, which performs intelligence functions. After Israel proclaimed independence, three main special services were gradually formed in the country. The Military Intelligence Service, also known as Amon. The Counterintelligence and Internal Security Service, also known as Shin Bet. The Agency for Intelligence and Special Tasks. That very Mossad, the official founding date of which is considered to be 1951. In general and on the whole, the agency had enough work. Mossad's staff is expanding. It begins to involve Jews living all over the world. Funding is increasing, and most importantly, it receives almost complete independence, reporting only directly to the Prime Minister. and it becomes so classified that the names of its leaders for all those years became known only in the late 90s. At the same time, Mossad's activities began to be somehow regulated by law, and not based only on internal instructions. Unlike the intelligence services of most countries, Mossad is not burdened with bureaucratic procedures and can carry out operations at its own discretion. If they consider it necessary to remove a target, they act without long approvals. Now, the license to operate by the agency is being discussed in a special committee of the Knesset, the Israeli parliament. Although its activities are also classified, something tells me that the committee has a purely formal character. Why has Mossad become so famous all over the world? The answer suggests itself: for its elimination operations. But this is not entirely true. First, loud successes. Eichmann and the secret speech. The first loud successes of the agency, which made noise in the international community and forced everyone to remember its name. It is considered that it began with the legendary Operation Finale in 1960. Adolf Eichmann was captured in Argentina and taken to Israel. The video about how the Mossad captured Eichmann is on our channel. The long tongue of his own son and a German Jew, Lothar Hermann, whose daughter met Eichmann Jr. and listened to laudatory stories about what an important big shot his father was in the Third Reich, helped to discover Eichmann. The Nazi was tracked down, identified, detained, and taken out of Argentina under the guise of an Israeli pilot who got into an accident. For plausibility, a real traffic accident was staged. A certificate from a doctor permitting transportation was issued, and Eichmann was pumped with sedatives so that he would not resist. Of course, Mossad acted exclusively out of ideological considerations and a desire to exact vengeance. But you couldn't invent a better PR campaign showing the strength of their intelligence and appealing to a sense of justice. The news delighted the whole world. Well, almost. Argentina was indignant and declared a violation of its sovereignty. If only they knew what happens when Mossad really violates sovereignty. But more on that later. Operation Finale is rightfully considered the calling card of Israeli intelligence, and in its significance it overshadowed another achievement of those years, which is not so popular among ordinary people, but in professional circles was considered almost the leak of the century. We are talking about the secret speech of Nikita Khrushchev. The Soviet leader voiced it at a closed Congress in 1956, denouncing Stalin's crimes under conditions of the strictest security measures. This aroused wild interest from intelligence agencies around the world and a desire to get hold of an important document in order to understand the shifts in the USSR. As a result, the text of the speech ended up with the CIA, but they did not get it themselves. They received it from Israeli intelligence. At that period, the young state of Israel was just forming and determining the vector of its development. The choice fell on the Western model. By handing over the report to the Americans, Israel showed itself as a useful partner and laid the foundation for close interaction between the intelligence services. I will tell you about how they managed to get a secret report in the closed communist bloc at the end of the episode. Mossad and storytelling, cinematic operations, and the legend of Eli Cohen. Now, every course on marketing and promotion talks about the effectiveness of storytelling. Mossad can be considered an ambassador of this PR tool. Judge for yourself. Many of their operations are a ready-made Hollywood movie plot, and films have already been made about many, including the already mentioned Operation Finale. If you watched it, write in the comments how you liked it. I hope you didn't think that Israeli intelligence plans its missions by consulting with screenwriters. And yes, not only Mossad operations form the basis of film production, but few can boast such a quantity of full-fledged, organic, and most importantly, publicly known stories according to all the canons of drama, where you don't even have to make anything up. One of these was Operation Moses, to transport Ethiopian Jews from Sudan. It was carried out in the mid-80s. They fled from the Civil War, made a difficult journey on foot across the African continent, which not everyone could master, but still continued to be subjected to attacks. Mossad organized a fake resort center on the shores of the Red Sea, through which it secretly took out from 14,000 to 18,000 Jews. Mossad also has the most popular character from the world of spies. The Israeli James Bond was named Eli Cohen, and he was considered one of the most outstanding intelligence officers in the entire history of the agency. In the first half of the 60s, Cohen was sent to Argentina, where he was supposed to infiltrate the circles of Arab elites under the guise of a Syrian businessman. He played his role so talented that he soon became someone like Gatsby there. Everyone wanted to communicate with him, visit his parties, and warmly accepted him as one of their own. So he gets close to the military attaché of Syria in Argentina, Amin al-Hafiz, who will soon become the president of Syria as a result of a military coup. Cohen moves to Damascus, rents a luxurious apartment with a view of the general staff and the presidential palace for receptions. He continues to be friends with Amin, and thanks to this gets access to the highest echelons of power and government institutions. During the 3 years of his stay in the country, Cohen was able to transmit a huge amount of valuable information to his homeland about Syria's plans, its military facilities, and ideas to cut Israel off from the source of fresh water by changing the channel of the Jordan River. He even managed to receive the rank of colonel of the Syrian State Security Forces and become the third person in the list of candidates for the post of president of the country. The obtained information made it possible to inflict preemptive strikes and help to win the Six-Day War. But when it became obvious to the Syrian authorities that the leaks had taken on a mass character, they managed to calculate Cohen with the help of Soviet equipment, pinpointing the signal of his radio transmissions. By the way, I talked about other achievements of industry in the previous episode. I recommend watching it. The Israeli agent was detained, tortured, and demonstratively executed in the square. Thereby, they made a real legend of the agency out of an outstanding intelligence officer and put the dramatic story of his life into the plot of a film. To the genre of unique robberies can be attributed the Mossad operation to steal 100,000 secret documents on Iran's nuclear program in 2018. Agents in the best traditions of the spy school penetrated a secure facility, opened safes, and stole half a ton of papers. Sounds pretty easy. What do you think? Tactics of retribution, Operation Wrath of God, and elimination of militants. You can't build the reputation of the most formidable intelligence service in the world only with skillful operations without a single shot. Hands will have to be dirtied. So we approached the culmination of Mossad's PR campaign, elimination operations. You were waiting for exactly them. As I already said, Israel is not just surrounded by unfriendly Arab countries. It is constantly subjected to attacks by militants of radical groups. Given such inputs, Israeli intelligence chose the tactic, the best defense is offense. It is another matter with their daring and sometimes open actions against enemies of modern times. A striking example is Operation Wrath of God. After the terrorist attack at the 1972 Olympics in Munich, during which 11 Israeli athletes were captured, the then Prime Minister of the country, Golda Meir, instructed Mossad to track down and eliminate everyone involved. For 20 years after the tragedy, Israeli intelligence methodically found and neutralized members of the organizations Black September and the Liberation of Palestine, whom it considered direct or indirect participants in those events. Most of the acts of retribution took place not in Arab countries, but in the very center of Europe. In Paris, methods used were very different. From quiet shots without witnesses to mining a telephone, hotel rooms, and nearby parked cars. And in Lebanon, a special operation was carried out, as a result of which more than 20 members of the PLO were neutralized in one night. What do you think? Fair, or should they have been judged? You can't call the operation secretive. Israel didn't try to hide it. It was a loud statement that they would punish everyone who, in their opinion, committed a crime against the Jewish people. Again, ideological motives of just retribution, which drag the perception of the agency along with them. In the same manner, members of radical groups were subsequently targeted. For example, leaders of Islamic Jihad, Hamas, and Hezbollah perished from car explosions. Bombs waited for others at home, and intelligence guided Israeli aviation and missile strikes on others. Elimination of scientists of nuclear programs. If everything is more or less clear with militants, then with operations to target scientists, everything is not so unambiguous. When the people and the state are constantly subjected to attacks and threats, preventive measures seem justified. But questions of morality and ethics move into the rhetorical section. In principle, this applies to the activities of any intelligence service in the world, not just Mossad. Do you think such methods are justified? In the 60s, parcels with bombs and direct threats were received by German scientists who helped Egypt develop ballistic missiles. And since the 80s, work on the neutralization of scientific figures has been put on stream. I will repeat once again that Mossad has not admitted to many operations, and direct evidence of their participation has not been found. But when scientists who could have at least a distant relation to the Iraqi or Iranian nuclear program began to disappear, die under mysterious circumstances, or as a result of various kinds of attacks, the version about the Israeli trace suggests itself. Judge for yourself. In 1980, a nuclear physicist who led Iraq's nuclear program was found lifeless in a hotel room in Paris. 10 years later, a Canadian physicist who helped Iraq build missiles was shot in Brussels. In the 2000s, Iranian scientists involved in the nuclear program faced it too. A wave of attacks attempts with similar handwriting sweeps through Tehran. A motorcyclist plants a bomb on the target's car and drives away, or acts not so intricately and simply shoots. And in 2020, a loud and effective of the founding father of the Iranian nuclear program, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, takes place. He was targeted in a car using a remote-controlled robot machine gun mounted on a pickup truck. I hope such cars will not go into production, better the American ones that I talked about in the previous episode. The contribution of all these victims to the creation of nuclear weapons, as well as the very possibility of its creation by Iran and Iraq, causes discussions. But it is obvious that now scientists will think several times before participating in its development, or they will simply be guarded better. This is the spontaneous PR strategy of Mossad. Failures and scandals. Jordan, Dubai, France. Its uniqueness also lies in the fact that they manage not only to balance on the verge of ethical norms, but also to reduce reputational losses after frank failures, and sometimes even extract benefit from them. Failed operations happen to any intelligence service. Mossad is no exception. Its agents have repeatedly been caught with passports of other states or exposed after completing a task in some country. So, in 1997, an unsuccessful attempt to eliminate the chairman of the Hamas political bureau took place in Jordan. They sprayed a substance into his ear right on the street but were caught. The Jordanian authorities were in normal relations with Israel, which did not affect their indignation due to the operation carried out in the country. They forced Israel to send an antidote, release another Hamas leader, and only after that returned the agents. A similar situation occurred in 2010 in Dubai, where Mossad targeted another high-ranking Hamas member in his hotel room. The operation was brought to its logical conclusion, and they left the country. But law enforcement agencies found the agents on cameras, their fake documents, and publicly expressed their dissatisfaction. No state likes the work of foreign intelligence on its territory, even if it is not directed at its citizens. In this regard, France suffered from Mossad more than anyone, if we leave the Arab region out of brackets. I already mentioned the operations in Paris, but the history of their intersections is much wider. In the mid-60s, Israeli intelligence assisted in the removal of Moroccan oppositionist Ben Barka al-Mahdi. The Moroccan authorities really wanted his elimination and turned to their ally Israel for help. At that moment, Ben Barka lived in Switzerland. According to an unconfirmed version, Mossad lured him to Paris, where he was neutralized by Moroccan special services. A few years later, the dissatisfaction of the French authorities was expressed in concrete actions. They refused to give Israel the built and already paid-for boats. What do you think Mossad did? They simply hijacked them in a storm force 9 gale right from the shipyard. Agents used a fake Norwegian company for this, which allegedly dealt with the maintenance of oil platforms and wanted to buy boats. In the late 80s, France cooperated with Iraq and supplied it with a nuclear reactor, which, as expected, would be used for peaceful purposes. Israel thought differently and solved the problem comprehensively. In addition to targeting scientists, Mossad destroyed 2 power units at a French warehouse, and later guided the Israeli Air Force to the reactor itself in Iraq. A mistake in Norway and the waiter. A failure that became legend. How do such international scandals affect Mossad's reputation and its activities? Yes, failures of operations and arrests of agents are damage to the image, but even such blunders have a downside. Now everyone knows that Mossad penetrates any country with documents of any third country and is not shy about completing a mission there, leaving chaos and destruction behind. Not that we and you doubted that other world intelligence services act the same way, but Mossad does not build a guilty look, does not promise not to do this anymore, and proudly demonstrates that such operations will continue. However cynical it may be, the fatal mistake of Israeli intelligence during Operation Wrath of God confirms this. Any accidental victims are tragic, but the drama of this failure went down in history. During the hunt for everyone involved in the attack at the Munich Olympics, Mossad in Norway mistakenly shot a waiter who looked like one of the leaders of the Black September organization. Moreover, everything happened in front of his pregnant wife. The Norwegian authorities detained and convicted the agents. Israel paid compensation, admitted the mistake, but never apologized. The resonance was huge, no consequences. How did this affect the reputation of Israeli intelligence? Everyone strengthened the thought that they adhere to the principle. The end justifies the means, and no one can object to them. And what do you think? Does it justify it? As we see, if we are not talking about loud successes or failures, then the public learns about Mossad operations only many years later. Therefore, every time even the most insignificant opponent of the Jewish state passes away in some country unfriendly to Israel, or when the Iranian president unexpectedly perishes in a plane crash, everyone immediately starts looking towards Mossad. And no one will be surprised if in 50 years, it turns out that he really had a hand in this. Results: PR strategy, fear, and mythology as a weapon. This is how their PR strategy works. Do they build it consciously? Yes and no. From Mossad's activities, one can understand that their sincere belief in a protective and defensive mission organically flowed into ostentatious cruelty. They quickly understood how to use fear in their interests and skillfully maintain their image of the most effective and uncompromising intelligence service, which helped them stand out so much against the background of other no less qualified world intelligence agencies. An ideological essence with which they infect the international community. And now, it is ready to close its eyes to cruelty and subconsciously allows it. The American intelligence had the same impulse when they tracked down and destroyed everyone who was related to the September 11th attack. But this is a point, short-term story, and Israeli intelligence manages to broadcast this signal constantly. The question of whether all this makes Mossad the best intelligence service in the world will remain unanswered. We have too little information to form any conclusions, but we do not limit you. Write your opinion in the comments. It will be interesting to read. History of the accidental extraction of the secret speech. By the way, that secret speech of Nikita Khrushchev ended up with Israeli intelligence by accident. A journalist, let's call him Victor, went into a Communist Party office in Warsaw to see his girlfriend who worked there. On her desk, he noticed a folder marked "Secret" and asked if he could borrow it for a couple of hours and look through it. The girl agreed. Victor understood what had fallen into his hands and took the report to the Israeli embassy, as he planned to repatriate to Israel and thought that this would help him establish relations with his future homeland. It helped. He received an award from the then head of Mossad. That's all for today. Like if you liked the video and subscribe to the channel. There are still many other no less interesting stories ahead.